Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Phil Jones. I'm the technical editor for projectorreviews.com, and welcome to our first Fall Projection Summit. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Sony, for helping us put on this event. Without their help and their support, this would not be possible. So, speaking of Sony, joining me today is my buddy, Rob Brennan from Sony Electronics. Hey, Rob, what's up, man? How are
Oh,
you
just
doing,
living the,
sir?
I'm doing well, living the dream out here in relatively smoke-free Texas. Hope that you're doing well, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to you and your audience about projectors and technology and everything that's going on these days. It's always an exciting time to love projection, but it's obviously great to be able to bust into my theater room since I've been stuck at home for 7 months and be able to mix up my experience every now and again.
Exactly. So projection has always been close to my heart. It's I've always got to hang out with Rob a lot, and it's fun to hang out and talk about their latest new additions to their projector lineup. So Rob, you guys actually just released a couple of three new projectors. You want to really
Right?
quickly kind of give us an overview of these?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we have these three models that are coming out. They're actually two of them are right around the corner. They're going to be available in mid-October, and that is the VPL-VW715ES and the VPL-VW915ES. Now, those two models replace models that are currently in our lineup. So, for those of you that are somewhat familiar with the product lineup, maybe your customers or your dealers, the 715 replaces the 695 and the 915 replaces the 885. So basically, we have a step-up lamp-based projector that is coming in, and then our entry laser. In addition to those two, we've also introduced a brand new flagship model, which is the VPL GTZ 380. So this is a true new addition to the lineup, and it's really we're going to talk a lot about kind of the nuts and bolts of things that are going on in projectors and technology. Uh, this particular model is kind of a beast unto itself.
Exactly. So I have been lucky enough to be because I live in San Diego and Sony's very kind to me to be able to play with several of their models. So I was one of the first to have the opportunity to do the a review on the VW915ES, which is the model that I have here for us today. So we can go through and do things like explore the menus. To summarize the review, it was probably one of the best pictures I've ever had in my theater the entire time I've ever reviewed. It is an amazing unit, and we'll talk about why. In addition to the model that I have currently here, the 915, we're going to be releasing our 17 our VW 715 review. Hopefully by like Sunday or Monday, so you guys can find out about those models. But as we go along, Rob and I are going to talk about the differences between these three models. If you look at them on the outside, they may look very similar to what you saw last year. So if say you look at the A915, it looks very similar to what the 885, Rob? Is that the model number?
That's
Eight,
right.
okay. And the 715 looks a lot like the 695. But what really makes it special is it has a bigger, badder brain. So the step up from the 715 to the 915, the main things are the laser light engine and
Absolutely.
what else?
It really is. The laser light engine is the star of the show. Now, being a laser light engine does give you a couple other benefits, as I'm sure most people that have been around projectors for a while understand. With a lamp-based projector, there's no dynamic ability to turn up or turn down the power going to the lamp. You're kind of at fixed brightness. Now you can use a mechanical iris to somewhat limit the output depending on the scene, but largely you're at kind of a fixed brightness output. But with
Mhm.
lasers, we can dynamically dim or increase the output depending on the scene. So overall, the dynamic range increases because in addition to the mechanical iris, we have a dynamic light source.
Mhm.
But primarily, the difference is the convenience of a laser itself. So you're talking, 20,000 hours compared to a lamp, which is going to get you about 4,000. And also, lasers, just like lamps, will lose brightness over time.
Mhm.
But the amount of light that you will perceive to lose during the 20,000 hours for a laser is very minimal, and it maintains color fidelity
Mhm.
in a much more stable way than a lamp, which would probably require you to go through at least, every several hundred hours or so and check colors to make sure you haven't drifted too far, and so that you're still maintaining color accuracy. With lasers, it's not something you typically have to think about.
Yeah.
So they're just the native benefits of having that technology are fantastic. Generally, what I tell customers is if you're looking for like a replacement for a television, if you watch a projector like every day, this is your thing. Lasers give you a lot of those benefits. If you're more of I use a projector for only kind of special events from time to time, a lamp is probably a fairly good match for you as well. While the laser gives you a little bit better performance, a lamp is not going to hurt you in any way. If you're looking at, I watch one movie a week. Friday nights is my movie night. The lamps are perfectly reasonable for what you're trying to achieve in most cases.
Yes. And like I said, to me, that's one of the things that I like most about the laser is I don't have to think about it. Like a TV, like a regular LCD TV, if the kids leave it on a couple of extra hours, who cares? But when you're talking about bulbs that are costing a couple of $100 or several $100s, you really start thinking, how long is it on? Did the kids leave it off? I can't play it right now. Maybe I shouldn't use it during the day because it's, all of that stuff. And that whole thing kind of goes away. And the fact that you can precisely control its output makes the whole concept, when you combine that with like the dynamic iris that is in the 915, I think that's what makes it look really, really good, is that dynamic iris and the ability to modulate the laser light engine really gives you better control over the blacks. So dark blacks are blacks, and it's noticeable that benefit. So if you're looking for better blacks, better brights, and reliable, and just the ultimate in like maintenance-free reliability, 915 is great. You will have to pay a premium because it's double the price, but you're gonna have. But for many people, just to have that additional performance and convenience, it's worth it. It's worth it to them.
And I'll point this out. This is just you do pick up about 11% brightness. For me, 11% is not something I'm writing home about. For all intents and purposes, they'll work on the same size screens. So largely, it is about the convenience and about a little bit better performance. It really applies more to HDR than anything else. But I agree with you completely, Phil. That's how I typically look at the two models. My 915 is still in the hallway along with 7 other projectors. Like even getting dirty looks from my wife.
Well, I got a few.
I don't want to take them upstairs. It's too many.
I have a bunch of Sonys. I have projectors everywhere. My house is buried in projectors. But hey, that is a rough life to have, Rob.
It is.
Too many projectors for the screens that you have. We can't complain about what we do for a living at all. So when you look at a 915, it looks a lot like the VW885. And
absolutely. The chassis is identical, and the feature set and the connectivity, all of that is going to be the same. And we'll get into the brain, but that's what's changed.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. What has changed is the brains that are found in these new units. They have a different brain. And I used to be with Sony back in the days, and so that's why Rob and I know each other so well. And even when I was there, Sony is always promoting that what separated products had to do a lot with the processing. It's almost like, because we always had an analogy, Rob, about the recipe, a chef and his recipe. Do you remember that? Do you remember that analogy?
Yeah, I remember your recipe. You can give roadkill to a professional chef, and they'll make a gourmet meal out of it.
Exactly. So the biggest thing is, you could have the same light source, you could have the same type of imager, you could have the same theoretical specifications, but it's the brain that determines what it looks like and how it's going to perform in a real world environment. And a lot of times, like if you look at it, so I'll give you an analogy, an example. OLED TVs. There's only basically one company that makes the panels for all the OLED TVs, but all those OLEDs look different. Why? Because the processing and the recipes that everybody uses with that panel, the brain and all the other things they add, changes the characteristics. So when I look at,
go
ahead.
Please. No,
when I look at last year's model,
keep on going.
Yeah, keep going. When I look at last year's model compared to this year's model, on paper they're the same, but they look different. So
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you think about processing, right? You know, as consumers are largely familiar with the idea of processing. We have processors in our smartphones and our tablets and our laptops and our computers, and we typically think of processors make things go faster. And the benefit of having advanced processing, in a display is that it doesn't make things go faster. Movies are going to play at 24 frames per second. You don't want them to play any quicker than that. But the idea is, with a more advanced processor, with higher speeds or better efficiencies, it can spend more time on each frame of video doing a deeper analysis. So it can make better decisions, right? Because every piece of content you watch, I don't care how good your source is still, an iteration on what the actual creator, kind of put down. When you take a look at what's, raw coming off the camera, you're looking at something that's maybe 40, 50 megabytes per frame. And you take that and you say there are 24 frames in a second and 60 seconds in a minute and 2 hours in a movie. And that's like 4 terabytes. But my 4K Blu-ray disc is 50 to 80 gigabytes. So every piece of content, even the highest quality, has gone through significant, compression. So being able to spend more time analyzing the frames and the scenes and say, what is it we're looking at? What is it the creator's trying to achieve here? And making the best use of our resources, we get closer to what the creator is intending for us to look at. And that's the benefit really of advanced processing is the deeper analysis and better decision making.
exactly. So so this year you guys added the X1 processor, which is normally found on your that was originated on your high-end
Right.
LCD and OLED TVs. So like we always talk about that chef. It's easy to make a really good meal if they're giving you fillets and lobster tails. It's really hard to make a good meal when they're giving you know oxtails and pig ears. So
When,
so a
when
lot of
everyone
time.
streams when everyone streams Mulan, the second it comes out, your individual results are going to vary, quite wildly. And so, those are kind of the experiences that we certainly have found.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things when you start seeing that starts separating products when we talk about performance and real world is every, 4K Blu-ray. My Kaleidoscape that Andre Floyd and Kaleidoscape loaned me, that looks good and it's consistent. But when you're watching something on an Apple TV and your kids are playing PlayStation, or you're watching a broadcast show and you don't know how it was down converted or up converted or whatever they did to it, that's where the processing separates itself.